Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Parents' Night Out. Talk, they'll hear you. This is a program that is put on through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Abington was very grateful and that we were able to obtain a license to put these programs on. This is one of several that I hope to do for our town. And this is, a brief program that will just help us start the dialogue. We do, whether we realize it or not, we do have a lot of kids, teens, preteens who are using illicit drugs and alcohol. And so the conversations are tough to have. And this is a way to help start these uncomfortable conversations with our kids and hopefully prevent more kids from falling into any bad behavior. So we're going to start out by and again, this is kind of a back and forth conversation. It's not me standing up here lecturing everyone or teaching anything. This is definitely a let's talk about this type event. So let's kind of by show of hands, or if anyone wants to talk, what made you decide to attend today? Do you have concerns about current behavior in your own household, in your child's friend groups? Do you see behavior of kids on your street? Do you have concerns about future behavior in your child or child's friend groups? Are you here because you want to learn more about the topic? Or are you here because you want to learn conversational skills to use with your children on a variety of topics? So anyone willing to share? And if we're not, it's totally fine. I get it.
The last one.
All right. Yeah.
I think it's a combination of all of them, but more importantly, you never know what's going to come up down the road. So having the tools in your tool belt before things happen is always a good way to get involved.
Awesome. So having the tools for future use are being prepared before you need it is awesome. So when I was looking at the options for courses to run and the wide variety of what we can do to help, the biggest thing I saw was that a lot of the questions that came up in these forums was, we don't know how to approach our kids. We don't know when the right time is, and how do you sit them down and have a big talk? And then it gets really awkward because now you're having this big talk, and how much do kids actually retain and listen? And so this I thought was very appropriate as a jumping off point for all of us to how to get those conversations started. When we talk about, in all of the programming material for Parents' Night Out, when we talk about other substance use and other drug use, we refer to marijuana, other illicit drugs, prescription drug use and abuse, as well as cigarette smoking and vaping. So we use illicit drug use and we encompass all of it, because for me to repeat that list would be here forever every time I've mentioned it. Kids are prescribed controlled substances. Your ADD medication, your ADHD medication, those are all controlled medicines, and they are known to be abused. Whether we realize it or not, we probably, whether we know it or not, know an adult that abuses them to help them get through a day, or it's okay because it's just one time here or there. But that is prescription drug misuse or abuse, depending on how frequently that's occurring. And so kids are seeing adults use this, and kids mimic adult behavior. Among kids 12 or older, people 12 or older, but that is the reference for this is 12 to 18. In 2020, 58.7% used tobacco, alcohol, or an illicit drug in the past month when they were surveyed. More than half of our kids admitted to using an illicit drug. That's a staggering number. Alcohol and other drug use during the teen years can interfere with normal brain development and increase the risk of developing a use disorder. So we're seeing substance dependence in people who are starting younger and younger. Injury and violence-related drug use is one of the leading causes of death for teenagers. We have seen this all along. Injury has been a leading cause of death for children for a long time. Kids are fearless. They think they're invincible. It's part of child development. And now you add in a chemical that impairs their already limited judgment, and they are going to make even poorer decisions. And there are life and death repercussions to those choices. 47% of children who begin drinking before the age of 14 will go on to develop an alcohol use disorder in their lifetime. For each additional year earlier than 21 that children begin to drink, the greater the odds they will develop alcohol dependence at some point in their life. Again, that's a huge portion of those who start to drink prior to them being of age to drink. 9% of youth who choose not to drink before they're 21 will still go on to develop an alcohol use disorder during their lifetime. We know that in America, additional research has found that 90% of Americans who meet the clinical criteria for addiction started using illicit drugs and alcohol prior to age 18. I apologize, I keep looking at the screen. I have notes on here that are far too important to not, I've memorized them, but they're far too important to not get correct. So why are our kids drinking and turning to illicit drug use? Stress, peer pressure, and transitions. So kids are worried more than ever about fitting in. They're worried about grades, they're worried about physical appearances, and they may drink or use illicit drugs to escape their problems. Sometimes that's a learned behavior, and other times it is something that they have heard about, not necessarily a mimicked behavior, but they've heard about it, so they try it, and they get the desired result. Between ages 11 and 18 is when kids are most likely to be influenced by their friends and social media. This is where the TikTok challenges and Snapchat and all of our social media platforms have changed the game of parenting. You know, when I was 11 to 18, we didn't have Facebook. Facebook came out when I turned 18. And so for me, I didn't have that additional level of pressure. If we were getting together on a Friday night, we were getting together and there was no one else influencing what we were doing. And then transitions. Life events such as transitioning to a high school or college, a breakup, moving, or their parents' divorce can influence children turning to drugs or alcohol. Again, all of these relate back to stress. Factors that can increase risk of your child using alcohol or other drugs can include everything we just talked about, as well as things like if they have body image issues, if they have something that they're concerned that they want to talk about, if it's related to their sexuality and they don't know how to talk about it, and so they get anxious and nervous. And so looking for signs that they're really starting to withdraw, and start asking those questions. Are you okay? Is there something you want to talk about? You can trust me. I'm a source for you to come to. I'm always an open door. In the midst of COVID, alcohol sales in stores went up 21% during the first 7 weeks of lockdown, while online sales more than doubled. I happen to know the gentleman that created Drizzly. He loved COVID. We grew up together, and Drizzly did great, but Drizzly was a source that you could get alcohol delivered to your front door. A California investigation found that delivery services we're often delivering to youth under the age of 21. Now, I had no part in the Drizzly development, but I can say from using it, they were super strict. They did card, you had to scan your ID, and they took a picture, and when anything was delivered, I was always asked for my ID. I'm not saying that's every driver, but there are other services out there that I have heard are delivering to underage kids. We ordered Uber Eats and DoorDash, and it came up, do I want them to stop at the liquor store for me the other day? It is apps that are so easily accessible and so commonly used that are now filtering deliveries of alcohol straight into our kids' hands. So that just the pay attention. If my kids listen to this, they're going to laugh because all I say to my poor children is pay attention. Not related to this, but it's my famous last words. Also, interestingly enough, during COVID-19 lockdowns, marijuana was classified as essential in states that used it, that was permitted as recreational use only. So even if you didn't have a medical card and you had recreational use businesses, it was classified as essential. And so those businesses thrived as well during the initial weeks of lockdown. The big concern on the public health side with that is we know that one of the first places COVID was attacking people in their bodies was their lungs. And with the use of marijuana and smoking, their lungs became a very vulnerable place. Since the pandemic began, just quick raise of hands, has anyone noticed a change in their child's behavior?
Raise a hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not related to this question, just in general, notice a change in their kids' behavior. Okay. Have you noticed a change in have you noticed any changes in your child or children's attitude or behavior regarding substance abuse? So anyone have noticed that they seem more interested in illicit drugs or substance use, drug use, alcohol? Less interested? Haven't noticed any changes or unsure? You can just think about the answers. No one needs to raise their hands. So again, these are tough topics that we have to think about and self-reflect on. And they're not easy topics to address on a personal level for someone, or for anyone rather, because it makes us think, am I seeing what's happening? So let's talk about how we talk about this. Again, these can be awkward conversations. How do you talk to your 10-year-old about drugs and alcohol? Is that too young? Do you have that conversation with them? So it's never too early to talk to your kids about drugs and alcohol, ever. You want to start these conversations long before you think they're ever going to need it and long before they're ever exposed. Because the more frequent small talks they have with their mom, dad, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, parent, guardian, coach, you name it, they will be able to, like the back of their hand, just know that, oh, wait, drinking? That's not for me. That, you know what, that can mess up my brain development. I really, really, really want to get into this awesome college. I should probably say no, I'm all good. So the frequent little talks are a much better approach than one big talk. Who spaces out in the middle of one big talk? I do. I start wondering about the weather and lunch and everything else but what is being talked about. And the other big part is being direct and honest. Now is your time when these talks are happening is to be a resource for our children. Now is when we have the opportunity to set the example and set the tone. If we aren't truthful and fully truthful, and our kids then find out, that we're not being fully honest, then our trust is broken with them. And if our trust is broken, then everything we worked for with this whole small frequent talks, being honest, we've just lost to a point. But so if you can have small, frequent, honest conversations and direct conversations, that's going to be our best bet. I can tell you for personal, my kids are 10 and 4, and it is not a joke at all in our house, but long before they were even able to talk, if I had a glass of wine in my hand, I would say, "This isn't for you," in a really silly tone of voice to get, when they were babies, to laugh. But they have grown up hearing that wine isn't for babies. Wine isn't for toddlers. Beer is an adult drink. And then as they got older, the questions started, well, why? Because it can mess up your development, because you're not old enough, because you're not mature enough, because you can't handle the consequences if you drink too much. And at 10 and 4, my kids, for better or worse, are fully aware of the effects of alcohol. And we have several local dispensaries in and around our own community with advertising, not just here in Abington, but in other communities. And the conversation has come up in the drive. What's that? And we answer very honestly. And there is no hidden message. We don't try to sugarcoat it. And so the honest conversations are where kids are going to start to thrive. But we do them in just small little bursts, and then we drive by, Peaceful Meadows and be like, oh, there's a cow, and quickly change the subject because then before it gets too heavy for, little kids. Approximately 80% of children believe their parents should have a say in whether they drink alcohol, but the reality of it is they are scared to talk about it. So your kids are listening. What are you going to say, whether they're actively paying attention and staring you in the eye, or if you guys are just driving in the car and you see a sign or you see a commercial? So it might not seem like it, but the research shows that young people really do listen to what their parents and close family members have to say about alcohol and other drug use. So start the conversations early, keep them short, and you will see a vast difference in attitudes towards drug and illicit drug and alcohol use. Before walking into this room tonight, how prepared did you feel to talk to your child about underage drinking and other illicit drug use? Very prepared, somewhat unprepared, or not prepared at all? Anyone want to share?
Somewhat prepared.
Somewhat? All right. In the brief couple slides, has your attitude or preparedness level at all changed? Do you think? We're not done, but I got this? Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's not one big talk. It's not a big scary, we have to sit down and have a talk. So on the back table, there are a whole bunch of handouts. Please take them home. They are actually awesome. So there are almost cue cards back there. And so take them. So this one is before they get behind the wheel. So who has kids that can drive? So when your child leaves, give them a hug and kiss and remind them that if they're driving and they take a drink, and what the consequences of drinking and driving are. I want you to come home tonight. I love you, and I want you home safe. Please don't make bad choices. Bad choices affect more than just you. Choose an informal time to talk as she's getting older. Who has daughters that they go shopping with? I know COVID's kind of messed it up. It's always fun in the dressing room, right? When everyone's frustrated and angry. Break that up by having a quick little conversation about how, you want your kid, you want to be able to continue these shopping trips, and you want to be able to continue life experiences and all of these things that potentially could be cut short if there was a tragedy related to drinking, an accident or an injury related to drinking or illicit drug use. And then who eats breakfast with their kids, or lunch, or dinner, or family game night, or spends even 2 minutes in the morning saying, have a good day? We all, at one point, see our kids. So make it a regular conversation, a part of the routine. So for our family, when we hang up with each other, it's be safe. And that started because my husband is a firefighter, but it has carried over onto all members of our family, and it's just our way of a quick, gentle reminder to be safe in whatever you're doing. Make good choices. So when you're talking with your kids, there's 5 goals to the conversation. You want to make sure that your kids fully are aware that you disapprove of underage drinking and other illicit drug use. We know that the research shows one of the most important factors in healthy child development is a strong, open relationship with a parent. And it's important to start talking with your children about drugs and alcohol and other drugs before they're exposed to them. Some say as early as 9 years old. In my case, because I have such an age gap, like I said, between my kids, my 4-year-old's exposed to those conversations because she's just in the car with us and always there. You want to show that you care about your child's health, wellness, and success. So along with the conversations of what do you want to be when you grow older, and how was your day, and we find a way to tie in that all of this can be done if you're safe and if you're healthy and if your brain develops and you can get yourself through college and meet all these milestones, and no pressure and do the best you can, but give yourself the best shot to do the best you can. And choosing drugs and alcohol, you're setting yourself up to not be the best you can. Show you're a good source of information about drugs and alcohol. No matter what your own experience is, you got to be a good, reliable source of information. If you have had a negative outcome with alcohol, if you choose not to drink for whatever reason, you have to remove your emotions and explain to your kids that these are the risks and these things can happen. They don't happen to everyone, but they can happen. We have families that call and talk to us, and it's, do I tell them that I'm sober? That's a choice that I can't make for anyone. I would encourage everyone to be honest all the time. But just because a single family member chose to be sober for any reason, doesn't mean that the child will choose the same pathway. And so the honesty about what the effects of alcohol are will go a long way. A great example is I went to school with a girl whose family didn't drink at all, ever. And she lived on our floor. And the first night she got to school, she decided that she was going to drink. Except no one had told her what had happened if you drink alcohol. So she took a shot of vodka, and nothing happened. So she took another one, and nothing happened. And she took 5 more because nothing happened. And then after 45 minutes, when they all kicked in, she went to the hospital. But no one had warned her that it is a cumulative effect over time. And she thought that you touch out, like it was such a negative thing from her family that don't touch alcohol. It is terrible. Do not. That was the only exposure she had. She thought the second she drank it, it would kick in. She kept drinking it to get any effect, and she ended up super sick. Show that you're paying attention and will try to keep them from using drugs, from drinking and using drugs. So if you notice suspicious behavior, they're hanging out with a crowd that's not maybe the best, you smell smoke, you smell alcohol, address it. We're the parents. Say, hey, what's going on? Talk to me. Is there a reason you are reaching for drugs and alcohol? Is there something I can help you work through? Are there coping skills that we should work on together? Is there something bothering you? Are you being bullied? Are your grades not well? What is it that's leading you to this decision? Is it that your friends are pushing you and you just need to know how to stand up for yourself and say, no, I'm all set, thank you? And then build your children's skills and strategies for avoiding alcohol and other drugs. The reminder that your kids are great as they are, they're fun as they are, and show them that they can have fun without it. Is it that they are into karate, which builds so much self-confidence I can't talk enough about? Is it that they like to have spontaneous dance parties, and remind them that they can have spontaneous dance parties with their friends without the help of alcohol? They can be themselves and nobody can take that away from them. They are themselves, and people either respect that or they don't, and if they don't, they're not the right people for them to be hanging out with. So the biggest thing is to prepare for the talk. You're going to decide when and where to talk to them. Or maybe you don't, and that's part of your plan, is you're just going to spontaneously start talking one day in the car. But that is part of your plan, is you're going to have spontaneous talks. You can consider using everyday opportunities in the car, during dinner, while watching TV. You can use the commercial excuse. If a commercial comes on, if you're watching Friends with your daughter or your son, and an episode comes on, Seinfeld was a great one the other night. There's a couple movies that there are some references that are kid-friendly that have opened the door for conversations in our household. Use them. Have that uncomfortable conversation, but relate it back to something that they can reference. Don't wait 3 commercial breaks and say, hey, that commercial about Bud Light, let's talk about it. What are you, Bud Light? When did that happen? No, the Bud Light commercial comes on, and then pause it and say, hey, let's talk. And they might get a little squeamish, and that's fine. That's kind of our job, right? All right, and so the biggest thing is having a bunch of little talks takes the pressure off of us, too. We don't have to remember everything we want to say. Who's gone in for a job interview, tried to remember everything you wanted to say to sell yourself, and walked out and been like, oh, I forgot to tell them my name? So if you slowly start the conversation, you're going to be better off, and they're going to listen. They hear what we say, whether we believe it or not. So kids ask tough questions. Why are alcohol and other drugs bad for me? So we shouldn't scare them. Scare tactics don't work. They're just going to rebel. So an answer other than they just are, they're just terrible for you. They're going to make you very, very sick. Why are drugs and alcohol bad for you? They can harm your growing brain, and you can get very sick. And if you drink too much, you can end up vomiting. If you drink way too much, you might need to go to the hospital, to the emergency room, and explain that there are consequences. Alcohol can make you feel kind of funny. You might lose your balance. You're not sure why people necessarily choose to feel that way, but you are altered, and you lose control of your ability to make good decisions, and you lose control of your balance, and explain what it feels like in a truthful, age-appropriate way. I got invited to a party. Can I go? Are their parents going to be there? What time is it? Are kids going to be drinking? If you ask the questions, chances are your kids are going to tell you. The other thing is, remind them about the rules that your house has about alcohol. If you set them up for success, sure, you can go. If there is alcohol, you're not drinking. If you're uncomfortable, just text me. I will come pick you up. I also teach babysitting here, and one of the biggest things I stress is if the girls or boys, because I certified a lot of boys last summer. I was very excited that we had a mix. Is if they are in a position where their families come home that they're babysitting for, and they're concerned that the parent was going to drive them home and they are intoxicated or altered in any way, to text their parent and say, I need a ride. And we come up with a plan for them. We use a code word, a safety word. I would urge everyone in this room to do the same thing with their kids for parties. Oh, hey, you know what? Actually, my mom changed her mind. I don't know, it's kind of weird. She's getting bread at 9:15 at night. She's just going to come get me early. I don't know, she's tired. She wants to go to bed. Make up some reason why mom or dad has to come early to the party if they're uncomfortable. Be that resource that your kids are comfortable with saying, hey, I got to tap out. I can't stay here. If you start having those conversations early, let them know that they won't be in trouble if they reach out to you. You are a trusted resource. What if my friends ask me to drink or use drugs? So this is probably going to be the toughest thing that they ever get asked. They're torn. Do they want to fit in? Do they want to stand? Do they want to be on their own? Now is when you help teach your child to say, no, I'm good. I'm okay. And so we're going to teach them ways that they can say no and maintain friendships. Or we take the different road and we teach them, no, these are probably people we don't want to associate with if this is an ongoing trend. That if your decision is, nope, I want to stay, I don't want to be around drugs and alcohol, and this is an every weekend thing, then maybe that's not the crowd for us. Maybe we should try to educate our friends that this isn't good and healthy choices. What if our kids ask us if we used drugs or alcohol when we were a kid? Who's been asked that yet? I bet you it's coming. So if you use drugs or alcohol as a teenager, be honest with them. They're going to find out. Social media, I mean. So we can use the fact that we truly didn't know the detrimental effects to child development as to why my generation, generations before mine, used drugs and alcohol in the way that we did. And now we're so forceful about, you know what, we really shouldn't be drinking underage. It's very different now. We have a lot of scientific-based, evidence-based research that shows how dangerous it really is and the long-term effects that it can have. I think everyone in this town is sick of hearing me say evidence-based research, but that is the truth. So, be honest. Again, if you're honest with them, they're going to turn around and be honest with you. All right, so we've all had the first talk with our kiddos. They're not going to learn everything they need from one quick chat. So we're going to keep talking. And as they get older, the conversation's going to change. You know, the conversation that we're having with our 10-year-old is going to be different when she turns 15, which is going to be different when she starts driving, and it's going to be very different when she goes off to college. So make sure that it's changing, the messages are remaining age appropriate. Anyone willing to talk about how a small conversation in the car on the way to soccer practice would change in a 9-year-old versus dropping your 20-year-old off at college? No pressure. So you're probably going to be a little bit more lighthearted with your 9-year-old. Not be as, hey, you know, it's really serious. Your 20-year-old, they're almost 21. They're going to say, Mom, I'm in college. I'm almost 21. And you're going to stress that there are still consequences and there are still problems if, God forbid, there was a car accident and there are long-term issues. You can be a lot more serious in your messaging with your 20-year-old than you could be with your 9-year-old. So, Talk They Hear You. It's a parent-focused national media campaign that provides tools and resources to help all of us. They have an app, they have a website, they have short little video clips. It is a great resource. I would strongly encourage everyone, it will pop up and then again I will email everyone, to download the app. The app was great playing with. So here are some of the public service announcements, the website, what it looks like, the talking with your teen about vaping, talking with your teen about marijuana, opioids. All of that stuff is on the back 2 tables. Please bring it home, take a look at it. It is so helpful. There is one about answering tough questions, which, funny little personal side note, my daughter was quizzing me if I knew the answers to the tough questions when I brought the material home to review it. She wanted to make sure I was up to speed. So there are fact sheets on the website, how to tell if your child is drinking, answering tough questions like the one I mentioned. And if anyone needs help accessing this, then of course you can call our office and I'm happy to print anything off or provide it for you. So this is one of the public service announcements that Talk They Hear You puts out. I think this one is important. I will turn the lights down a little.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind. Take this time to talk and get it right. You know I'll be there all your life. When you need me, I'll be by your side. By your side. And every day is a different day. Everything isn't everything. Even when you think things could never ever be the same. Don't be scared of the world, I'll be here to stay. By your side. Even when your heart ain't listening, or your mind takes you a different way, towards a different path. All you gotta do is sit and ask. When you need me, I'll be by your side.
When the adults in a child's life talk early and often about the dangers of underage drinking, the message gets stronger every time.
I'll be by your side.
Talk They Hear You.
All right, so this talks about the app. There is a feature of it that you can have a dialogue with yourself about what the conversation would sound like and what you would sound like talking to your child, and then play it back, which I did. It was kind of an interesting experience. But it's pretty cool because it has virtual sessions and it allows you to gain that confidence. And if you're someone that is, I don't know if I'm ready. Well, talk to the app. Everyone talks to Siri and mine turns on. So talk to the app. Get used to having that tough conversation, build up your confidence, and then sit down and just rip that Band-Aid off and have that conversation. It is available Android, iPhones, and Windows devices. And then conversation starters, goals. It gives you possible reactions from your children, how to close the conversation and move on to a new topic. I find ice cream is a great way. Ice cream solves a lot of things in our household. Facts on underage drinking. You can earn badges for completing practice scenarios. When I was mentioning that record a practice session, listen to how you sound, and then you can schedule reminders in your calendar to have the conversation. If you're someone that's, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. You can use this to say, nope, I'm having it tomorrow. More information on the app. So I will send these slides out. Like I said, that just shows you the functionality that we just discussed. All right, so let's answer questions that all of you have. So 2 got sent in. One was as a coach, how do you approach questions that arise? The same way, honest answers. I would let a general email to families know that these questions come up, and this is the answer I gave. But I wouldn't delay answering them, because if you delay it, kids notice the delays. They notice the pregnant pauses. They notice that we as an adult are squirming away from answering right away. So answer age appropriately and honestly, with the reminders that underage drinking and illicit drug use is detrimental to brain development. And if it's a coach, athletics, so it's gonna affect performance, and you won't be the most reliable team member. And is that something that you want for your team? Would you be okay if a team member wasn't the most reliable for you? Don't you want to be the best you can for the rest of your team as your team is being the best for you? And the other one was how to help an adult child with a problem with addiction. So we have actually, shortly I will introduce a great resource here in town, but through lots of support, education, and resource outreach, and just a lot of support and constant talking and what can I do and trying to address the why. Through all of the research that we have done in public health, talking about the problem, not having it be a closeted issue, has been one of the ways that we can try to help addiction. Because the more it's talked about with the person who is having a problem, the more we can try to break the cycle. Anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
Familiar with Learn to Cope? Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is a good resource for parents and
Yes.
children.
So I will be, along with the slides and all that, I will send out a list of resources as well. All right, so that is my presentation. Thank you so much. In the email, there'll be a short survey. Per our license, they ask us to send out the survey. So if you don't mind answering that, it would be greatly appreciated.